Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Property AI Report. This is your weekly digest of all things property and AI, brought to you this week by me, Mal McCallion, and my good friend and co-host, Matt Goddard. Matt, how are you?
I'm great, Mal. It's lovely to see you on this fine Monday. How's your weekend been?
I was down on the south coast in Brighton, which is very nice, dropping off my stepdaughter at university. So that was very exciting. What about you? What did you get up to?
It's delightful. It's actually quite warm here in sunny London. In fact, I've got the shutters closed now to keep the sunshine out, but it does feel like it's turned cold when the sun's not around.
I don't know. Yeah, if it's sunny down with you, it's bloody freezing up here in Cambridge. But anyway, we will appreciate the sunshine whilst it is here, because pretty soon it's going to disappear. Anyway, we've got lots and lots to talk about in our property and AI report this week. So let's crack on, first of all, with our property news. Okay, I think only one story really dominating today and for a bit of last week as well, actually, and that's Zoopla. So the story was announced by Sky News last week that Zoopla was pretty much being put on the block by its owners. They have sourced various accountants, EY, people like that, to put the case for what should be sold or how it might be able to be sold and all that sort of stuff. And Zoopla's comment was, we've got so many great businesses, it's just a periodic thing. And of course, we're going to see where they might be positioned out in the market and whether anybody might be interested in blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it does just speak to something that we've been talking about for a little while, right? That actually the also ran portals, as one might call them, are struggling.
And as you say, we've talked about it pretty much as the news hit last week that they were being put up for sale and expanded on that. But today, as we were putting together the show notes, it's a week later and it struck again with the fact that the pre-tax losses have come through, and it really does smack at a time where there seems to be other portal challenges trying to kick things off, which I know we'll come on to, in a difficult situation for them.
Yeah, like you say, so their revenues are down 7% to 83 million, I think, for 2024, which compares to Rightmove's, which just happened to be up by 7%. But obviously, 7% of Rightmove's fees is quite a chunk more than 7% of Zoopla's. So Rightmove's is up to 390 million in 2024. Did some analysis earlier on today and put it out actually on LinkedIn. And if you did a calculation of reasonable estimates, you probably got to a place where Zoopla's average fee is probably £500 or less, so like a third of what Rightmove's is, and obviously seems to be going down, or certainly the number of agents that are taking it are going down. And it just speaks to this sort of really unhealthy dynamic, I think, that we've got in the industry, which is the main monopolistic dominant portal being able to charge what it wants and everybody else just losing along the way. It is obviously good for Rightmove if they are taking so much money that agents can't afford Zoopla.
Mm-hmm.
It's a win-win, and I just see that's hugely problematic out in the market. Again, obviously on the market have come through, acquired by CoStar, and perhaps haven't been kicking butt the way that a lot of people would have hoped. So yeah, I just think it speaks very poorly of the competitive environment that the portals are in, and what that means for agents and indeed for everybody else in the industry. Because if agents aren't able to afford other stuff like Zoopla, then they're not going to be able to afford other stuff like other property technology businesses in the industry, other suppliers, and that just impacts on the whole industry.
No, exactly. And it's a part of it, reading through some further bullet points, was that restructuring of the business that we touched on last week and I've talked about in previous episodes, was the splitting off into three separate entities. And one of the, I think it was nearly a 20 million write-off, 19.5 million write-off of Your Keys, which they only acquired in 2021. And Ricardo Dawson actually joined from there, and some New Homes prop tech or software. So to see that being basically taken out of the mix does highlight that restructuring they've been doing as well.
Yeah, and because I remember the big fanfare announcement when they took over Your Keys, and again, a really successful little business that was working well with a load of developers and was looking like it was going to be a key part of the suite of products that Zoopla was rolling out, and now, as you say, been almost completely written down. And yeah, what does that mean for its strategy from a new and prop tech and kind of innovation and all that sort of stuff perspective? It seems like it's retrenching, and yeah, as we've said, almost resigned to having to sell off various bits and pieces to try and recover some of the revenues for Silver Lake. I think when you look at what might happen to it, and again, we kind of speculated on this a little bit last week, that there might be acquirers in the wings, REA Group, who had 6.4 billion turned down for Rightmove. Might they decide to go for Zoopla and try and drum that up? Are there other sort of others waiting in the wings? Might CoStar come in and actually decide to just take it out of the way, make some kind of cheeky offer? 83 million in revenues is not to be sniffed at. That's still something, but if it's going down, and the chances are it might continue to go down if Rightmove continues to go up, then what does that mean for the value of the business? Again, we often talk about these are obviously people and people working there and great people and all that sort of stuff, but as a business, it's got to be making money, and it's got to be finding its home. It's got to have product market fit, and that kind of ties us up to where we were going with the next story, which is a couple of other property portals are coming into the arena to saying they're going to go and fight Move, and anything that's going to try and fight Rightmove, I'm a massive supporter of. I think that's a really important thing, but I do just wonder what the Zoopla story says for how or what is going to be required from those particular types of businesses to take these things on. I don't know what your thoughts are.
It's a time where there's a number of differentiators putting their content out there in ways that the large language models are going to consume, and focusing on that side of things, and maybe even pivoting away from being portals in that respect. I'm thinking of people like Home Search, who used to take property feeds, and the number of portals who do take feeds from the CRMs to get listings out there is quite phenomenal. But we've talked 3-4 weeks about the focus around getting your content in a structured way so that those crawlers and training data are picking up on your content. I know you've said before off air that what's the point in doing another portal or even paying for it when there's so many mechanisms for getting your listings out there, and the best one being getting on your site in a really well structured way.
Yeah, and listen, so I think that, and those that have heard me speak about our Rightmove Resistance Tour and what our project is here, just touching on it very briefly, I fundamentally believe that pay to list is dead. That actually, as you go through, that the idea of actually listing and paying to list a property on a portal is going to be very difficult to the point of impossible, because with ChatGPT, with other players in the market, and obviously include us in this as well, you are going to be able to list properties for free. You're going to be able to see the enhancements that are possible within those listings to go and win more business and so on. I think this is the future. Obviously, I think this is the future. This is what we're building, and this is why we're building it, because essentially the data is now free. People will be able to find this information out there. So yeah, you find somewhere. It may not be us, but obviously I would very much recommend you do look at us, because we're going to be able to help you with those portal bills, and that's really where our jumping off point. But again, this isn't supposed to be an advert. This is just a conversation around what is obviously happening out there, which is that these other models are starting to fall away, and I genuinely think that there is going to be a reckoning for some of the dominant ones, the monopolistic ones, the ones that have not taken care to build relationships and to nurture them through over time. And I think that's going to be an interesting moment, and obviously one that I think the industry will welcome, and I think is overdue, particularly as far as this ability for them to charge such high increases way above what is right, frankly, let alone what is justified by inflation.
Use the term jumping off point there, and it made me realise that and Sean Adams's new Say No to Rightmove type campaign, which has got screenshot of the advert from Rightmove's latest TV campaign. The jumping off point was there's a lady coming out of the house, jumping out into the ocean off the cliff, and the only thing that it stuck out for me is that someone said to her, how does she get back into the property? Because it's not a 50-foot odd drop. So if that's the thing people are thinking of when they see the Rightmove campaign, I did see one of the portals referring to it, one of these new challenger portals referring to it as drive-by property, which maybe means a slightly different thing to me where I am in South East London to what it means for you. But a lot of the time when you see these new portals, there was the Tinder one, wasn't there? Tinder style property where let's swipe left or swipe right, depending on whether you were interested in it. They come along with an idea and then disappear quickly. And I think it's much easier now to get your content out there for no cost, as you say, or very nominal cost, than having to sign up to another portal.
Yeah, and look, a lot of this stuff isn't going to change overnight, but I do think that AI is moving so fast. If you listeners, if you haven't tried using ChatGPT agent mode to search for property, then give that a go, because that will tell you all you need to know about where everything's moving. I also think the fact that you can chat to AI means that it's not just a young person's kind of tech.
Mm.
A lot of historical technology developments have lain as with the younger generation as they come through, and old gits like me are sitting there going, "Oh, I've always done it the old way. I'll do it the new way. It's so newfangled, blah." Work perfectly well, but actually now older generations, people who maybe don't have a great eyesight or struggle to type stuff, will be able to just talk. And I think that
Mm.
again, the interface is going to be so different. You're not going to have to click and choose three goddamn filters, uh, price and bedroom numbers, and that's pretty much it. Location. So yeah, I think it's all going to change, and I think that the Zoopla is very much a sort of canary in the coal mine. It is telling us that this is an old model, and that actually things that are going to change. And I think they're going to change very quickly. Yes, that I think is going to be news we will not come back to over time. I think there's going to be a lot to be said about it. But yeah, again, it's something that is a generational thing, right? 25 years or so, things change. And you saw print change fundamentally 25 years ago. Now, I think portals are due for a kind of revolution and things like that. And the interesting thing, I think, is going to be what Rightmove ends up doing, how fast it does anything, because it doesn't own the data. So if
Mm.
there comes a time when agents decide, actually, do you know what? I'm not going to put all of my properties up on Move, then Move stops being half as a compelling proposition for consumers. And also, if you can't find your property by the sea with your dance classes and a school nearby and blah, blah, because you can't search that way on Rightmove, then again, Rightmove is going to have problems because agents will remove their properties from it.
And it doesn't have to be a seismic shift either, does it? I think I've spoken about the London broker before, but the London broker, Rupert Collingwood there, doesn't put his properties on Rightmove unless the vendors absolutely demand it, and he uses other means and metrics, and something like Google Gemini that's got the sort of direct line to Meta and consumes all the Meta content and then therefore surfaces that through. You put your listings out on Meta, Facebook, Instagram, you put it on your own website. That's where ChatGPT agent's going to pick it from in the first instance. And what you do, even by delaying it by 48 hours, 72 hours to a right move, is you devalue the content that they do end up with. And this first publisher first protocol that the large language models use means that you come out first in those results.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is well worth you having a really good think about what your listing strategy is going to be, and keep on listening because there's lots going on. And yeah, it's all very, very exciting actually, because it's been a long time since anything has come along and consumer behavior has changed to the extent that it is changing right now. And that can only be good news for the industry, I think, because it's going to remove the reliance on the big dominant beast in our industry, which is obviously Rightmove. Okay, that is our rather extended portal chat. Now let's have a chat about something else very big, which is LRG. To other fans, it is Leaders Romans Group. They are apparently being lined up for depending on which of the online news sources you read, either 700 million or 800 million pound sell-off.
We'll go for 750. Split it straight down the middle. It's just a bit of spare change.
Big chunk. Yeah, absolutely. And it's great. It's amazing, isn't it? Because these businesses have been kind of like gravitationally pulling in all of these different disparate brands from all over the country and building this amazing kind of conglomerate. And yeah, so there's them, there's Lomans, there's Dexter, there's others that have just attracted all these different brands themselves. Do you think that this is going to set off a bit of a domino effect? Do you think what do you think, who's going to buy them? What's going to be?
It's only recently, sort of relatively recently, that Lohman refinanced again, wasn't it? And they got was it LDC for them when sold out and brought in a new private equity house. And it seems to be the way that they get passed from one huge fund to the other. But I was actually thinking LRG was relatively quiet for a while. They bought Sterling Ackroyd, bought Acorn, bought A&Co up in the home counties, and then got Chancellors this summer. So it's a lot of moving parts to bring together into one behemoth, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and obviously all these systems and people and cultures and brands that stand for different things. So yeah, it's always difficult. And I guess the classic is looking across a countrywide and remembering how they brought, I think it was 48 brands together and built this amazing business that then they floated. So yeah, I guess that the fact that they're not, it looks like they're actually looking to be sold off rather than necessarily floated is quite an interesting move. Actually, have they got somebody in mind? Actually, is Lomond fully pumped primed to actually acquire this thing? Would Property Franchise Group have an arm that is much more brand owned and things like that? Because that would create an absolutely phenomenal size
Yeah,
business.
an absolute beast, wouldn't it? And but is it more indicative of the sort of the markets over the last, I don't know, 5, 10 years, and the fact that there's since Foxtons floated in what, August 2012, no one's really ventures that way. And even if you look at AI specifically, because we do tend to chat occasionally about AI, and a lot of our UK startups were bought by big American companies, weren't they? And is that because of the fact that the markets here don't really want to invest anymore? And without going off onto another economics lesson, like, is it a case of these big private equity houses do see the opportunity there to hoover up more of our markets?
Yeah, and so I will do the next economics lesson next week. Big fans of my economics, stay tuned. But yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? And again, we've just been talking about Zoopla and one of the big private equity houses getting burned for acquiring Zoopla for 2.2 billion in 2018. Actually, what is the appetite? Perhaps is there a venture fund that's thinking, actually, why don't I put into LRG and then maybe then also acquire, I don't know, Dexter's or something like that? Yeah. And what does it say about as you said, that the kind of market right now actually is now a time to sell because the current owners think it's peak
Mm.
in more value in next year or anything like that. And again, what does that mean for the market and what does that mean for kind of sentiment and stuff? Yeah, look, it's very early. It's literally the last 24 hours this kind of things come through, but I think it is, it's important. Does this mean that the value of businesses is great right now, and people should be looking at selling up? And when those acquisition companies, when Atomic get in touch and say they've got something wanting to buy your business, should now be the time? Or is it, does it actually mean that absolutely everybody's running away from the UK property market because it's about to take a turn for the worse? Yeah, all going to be interesting to watch play out. But yes, I think that the fact that these guys have made such quick acquisitions, built this thing up, and now are looking to flip it, I think is a really interesting story, and one that we will revisit, no doubt. Okay, our third story this week in our property news is all about auctions, because we wanted to just reflect a little, didn't we, on the last 15 years in auctions, because as part of a story that actually you put into the show notes, Matt, one of the big companies that's grown over the last 15 years has seen a milestone for its founders.
That's it. I saw on LinkedIn, actually, Ben Ridgway is one of the founders of I Am Sold, was celebrating 15 years, which probably means Jamie's also celebrating 15 years, because I remember them both turning up at one of the early EA Masters type events, obviously known as Sunday Times at that stage, and being the new kids on the block. And now they're a beast of a business up in the northeast, following on from the talk about LRG and Lohman. They've built something quite impressive themselves. And this sort of auction story doesn't really talk about them, but it's still that sort of, when you see news articles about auctions, it's almost a case of, is it just been people using it for distressed sales, or is that auction market actually changing more? And has that been via people like I Am Sold?
Yeah, I've been hugely impressed with Jamie and Ben and what they've managed to do. And like you, I remember back in the day seeing them come through and thinking, is that gonna work? Are they going to be able to actually change people's minds to look at what they called even back then the modern method of auction? And are they going to be able to get people to do it? And look, if I look back at Zoopla very early on, we had a little auction section back in 2010, and around the same time these guys were doing it, and we closed it reasonably quickly because we just couldn't get the model right. But these guys absolutely smashed it. Obviously, 15 years later, I think it's a huge, I think the hundreds of millions of pounds worth in terms of the value of the business. I think the turnover is in the multiple tens of millions. So they've done astonishingly well, and huge props to them, huge congrats to them. 15 years is a big milestone as well. And yeah, there are very few people who can say that they've changed the face of a business, and I think it's absolutely true of these guys and what they've done. And for many businesses that I know, many agents, this is a really important revenue stream from now. So yes, I think that they've, to a greater or lesser extent, changed the conversation around auctions. I think that they are now seen as less of just a kind of smoke-filled rooms, or not so much smoke-filled these days, rooms where people are just sitting there trying to pick up some really crunchy old house for 10 grand or pay on their credit card, into something that is now an option for people. And I think that's a huge credit to them.
You're thinking Homes Under the Hammer with Dion Dublin type situation, aren't you? That's really not some people like I'm Sold or the Essential Information Group, which is another one that the article was referring to.
Yeah, although Dion Dublin was back on my feeds as of last week with the Money Penny Welcome to Wrexham Rainer tie up, and he was in the turf when he was in the pub.
Yeah,
chat.
yeah, you could have been there, Mal, meeting him.
Yeah, no, looked like it was great fun, and congratulations to Moneypenny and to Rainy Personnel for doing a great job on that. As an aside, but yes, it's been a yeah a really good 15 odd years for Iron Sold. Now Iron Property Group, so well done them. Okay, that is our property news for this week. Let's get stuck into our AI and tech news. Again, loads going on here. But we're going to start talking about money. This is both OpenAI and Google are working on ways to increase the speed with which they can empty your wallet, really, or at least on others' behalves. So OpenAI is readying what it's calling orders in ChatGPT for checkout purposes, right?
That's it. And so we've talked about paywalls being put into the sort of large language models previously, but this is very much about not your content being kept away for unless you're paid, but this is for you being able to buy things directly from the likes of Google Gemini or ChatGPT. So the Google one's a protocol where, so for example, you could say, I want a particular jacket in a range of colours and I'm willing to go up to a certain amount of money, or I'm trying to find gig tickets for, in fact, I'm just looking at my calendar, I've got tickets for Feeder on Saturday somewhere in London. So if I hadn't got those tickets and for some reason you wanted to go and see and play Buck Rogers, you could say, this is what I'm willing to spend and this is the area I'm looking to do. And they're given that sort of mandate, that mandate to go off. And so these protocols, as we talked about with MCP previously, so the Model Context Protocol, established that mechanism for people being able to work within them. And Google and ChatGPT both coming out in the same week goes on top of what we've discussed before with Salesforce and Walmart already initiated these steps. And you can see it not being too many hops, skipping a jump to being able to just say, I want you to go off and buy me a suit for a wedding in November in Edinburgh. And the next thing it's arriving through the door with the payment taken from your card.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you think about the kind of online transactions, you've got Stripe, you've got Go Cardless, PayPal back in the day. These were as you say, the protocols that enabled businesses to sell via that particular medium, the internet. And this is exactly the same thing. It is actually, as you say, you're going to be able to say, I want to go on a holiday to this destination from this airport, find me within these dates and so on, and this is my limit. And it'll be able to go away, find it. It might come back and just say, we found it for this. Are you sure you want to pay? Yes, tick, and then off it will go. And yeah, the pace at which this moves is going to be frightening. If you thought going from cash paying in a shop to being able to pay on your phone with them, without even thinking, is a huge step up online, then yeah, this is going to be very fast indeed, and is going to enable you to just to have agents paying for things, ridiculously quickly.
I guess the point of the protocols as well to underline for listeners is that they've been there to put in place to protect us as well, so that if you are doing some of these mechanisms, that it's not bad actors that are running off with your card and taking the funds, that there's a security between what they're interacting with and purchasing for you as well. That's the point of the ChatGPT one and the Google one, but worth noting that if you've not got those, then it was worth focusing and being aware of who you're handing your payment details over to.
Always, absolutely, and even the early stages of these, I think there's going to be some time before it's fully operational and fully accredited and all that sort of stuff. But yes, the moves that they're making right now is paving the way, is building the foundations for what is going to become a really quick and swift way of building out sort of markets and stuff like that. So yes, plenty of fun there. Also on the payment side and in the kind of world of big tech, we've got Amazon, haven't we, helping sellers to complete tasks to make sure that they've got their listings and all of their structures up to date, and all of their shops with their own AI agent via Amazon. And this
That's it, making sure, as you say, that the inventory management's in place, product listings, advertising are all filled out correctly. I guess this is like the Amazon equivalent of what the property CRMs all did by being able to produce your property details using the sort of generative text and filling in those bits properly. I wondered if it was stopping short of doing a model prop style optimizing your photos for the listing as well.
I bet it probably is actually. Yeah, I imagine there's going to be a lot of different color schemes and things like that you can just press buttons and it would just use the same image and redo it. We've spoken before and we will speak again about the explosion of amazing image work right now. We've got Nano Banana, you've got Sea Dream coming on, all that sort of stuff. It's a phenomenal space right now. So yeah, I can't imagine that Amazon is not helping its sellers, probably for a little bit more of a fee, to be able to utilize these things.
Talking of Nano Banana again, it's in our next story. It actually utilised a lovely segue there, Mal.
I
Very good
love that.
work. And I pointed out last week that you were giving the power to the people. You just did the finger pumps there. That's for those not watching on YouTube, and for my dad watching the wrong one again. Is the finger pumps, and Nana Banana has now caused the Gemini app to overtake ChatGPT in the Apple market, which leads me to think: does that mean that Elon's now going to sue Google instead of Apple?
It was not that long ago, was it, when Elon was absolutely incensed and actually suing Apple, yes, suing Apple for the fact that nobody apart from ChatGPT gets to be the top spot, apart from DeepSeek back in the day. And now, yeah, Gemini has beaten ChatGPT this week and for the last couple of weeks to top spot in the Apple App Store because everybody wants to be doing bananas. I have heard and seen that apparently it's so big in India. And that's one of the reasons why it's absolutely smashing everything because they're finding old pictures of like their grandparents and stuff like that, and then getting them to have stories and things like that around them, and you
Oh wow.
build out like little cartoons and stuff like that. And then on the back of that, then building out these things into Google VO and getting videos and so on. So it's, yeah, there's loads going on. Apparently there's Bollywood from the 80s is a big thing. So you can get yourself and a couple of other people and redo yourself as an 80s Bollywood superstar. So yeah, there we go. Maybe that's the ident. That's what we need to do for the ident for this week. Done. I look forward to that. All right. So next up, we've got a story about RayBan glasses. All right. Now, again, this has been huge news in the tech space where Mark Zuckerberg has now brought out, I think it's version 3 of them, which has got, and so imagine you've got Meta glasses, which are Ray-Bans, and down in the bottom right corner of your right lens, it's got a little screen. That's apparently really bright and you can see it like in direct sunlight and stuff like that. And basically that little screen has got things like you can take pictures, it's got videos you can watch, you can take calls, video calls on it. And essentially you can, whilst you are walking around, AI can be taking in everything you can see, everything you can hear, and is able to then understand far more about your environment, about your life, and everything that kind of goes along with it. And whilst it sounds a little bit science fiction-y and perhaps a little bit scary to certain people, and particularly at this early stage in AI's gestation, I do think this is probably going to become really widespread and is going to become something that we are all going to either be doing, or certainly we will see other people doing, and we'll have to make a decision on whether we want to talk to them or not.
And I'm just wondering when I can get them in my contact lenses so I don't have to wear my goggles during the day. But we see these advancements. It's really Ray-Ban equivalent of the Meta Quest, isn't it? And we saw Meta align everybody into that department. And then I know I certainly see people with the Meta Quests on their head watching films and playing games, and Hunter and Bet's, my niece and nephew, all do that. But the fact it's a normal pair of glasses like you're wearing now, but with that little screen in the bottom corner, up until now, it's not something I'd have considered doing because they take photos or listening to the music through the sort of the glasses. It's a bit like what's it doing more than what we've already got. But the fact that you can actually see some of that information on a heads-up style display, it'd be interesting to see where that projects next.
Yeah, and you go back to Google Glass back in 2011, something like that, and that was a big kind of thing, and everybody was quite excited by it. But then there was this idea of glass holes, people who would have these on and be recording you without you knowing about it. And I think there is going to be, for a little while at least, people who are slightly quite nervous about that. Apparently, if you're talking to somebody who's got one of these on, then they are slightly unnervingly always looking slightly down and to the right. Or, you'll actually be sitting there talking to somebody and they're going, why is that person not even looking at me? So yeah, so that's something to watch out for. That's the trigger that lets you know that they are basically recording you, or they're just very bored and are watching a film.
Yeah, listening to the news.
Yeah, exactly right. Or perhaps watching the podcast, watching this.
Yeah, or reading the podcast script. Is that what you're doing at the moment?
No, I've told you before, this is my avatar. I'm on a beach.
That's
right.
a good segue.
So this is, so that's the Meta's Ray-Ban glasses. They're going to be big news. I wanted to cover, because I feel that we should, rather than I feel that it's very exciting, the fact that last week during Donald Trump's visit, loads and loads of tech people came over and sat around a very big table with the king and also Keir Starmer. And then suddenly they've invested loads of money in the UK, which is, I don't think anybody could particularly argue that the investment is bad, right? Apparently it's 1.5 times what we got invested in the country as a whole in the whole of 2023. So it's big and it's important. But yes, obviously there's also the other side of it, which is like, we're just building some things that are going to rely on American tech. One might argue, as I sit with my iPhone talking into my MacBook, etc., that reliance might already that horse might have already bolted. But anyway, yeah, I think it's really important. I think it's good. I think we're building out data centers. Apparently, there's going to be a huge one up in Wallasey, I think, up in
And one in Blythe as well in Northumberland. So to the extent that there's a concern about the infrastructure being able to support those data centres and whether or not we need electric, almost brownout style. But the fact that investment's coming, there was a big, over the summer, wasn't there, a big investment meetup in the Middle East and huge raft of spending talked about there as well, and how we can take the opportunity and bring, because as I touched on earlier, a lot of the early AI startups were in the UK and were then acquired. And so we want to make sure that the young minds have got that investment and those opportunities.
Yeah, exactly right. If we find ourselves without the capacity to build out the AIs that we need to, then we're going to have problems and we're going to fall very far behind. Yeah, I think it's good, and I'm excited to see what it does. Obviously, it'll take a little while to get on stream and so on. But yeah, I think it's good news for the country all around. Okay, that is our AI and tech news for this week. Let's just have a little look at our tool of the week, shall we? And as Matt says, the tool of the week is very much based on avatars entering meetings. So way back for the longer serving listeners of the Property and AI Reports podcast, I had quite a bit of fun with Zoom and their avatar creator. So I could actually have a meeting with myself, should I so wish, or I could position my avatar in a meeting with other people that would know stuff, and I could train it to understand what the meeting was all about and all that sort of thing. So this technology and this ability is now, they've enhanced it. They've made the avatars even more lifelike, able to react to things, and my avatar was rather stiff, but I tried to make some jokes and did very badly at it. But this, yeah, it's got some brand new features in Zoom. It's also going to be able to, just like with Otter, with Fireflies and other meeting assistants, AI assistants, will be able to go into different meetings, not just Zoom meetings, into Google and to Teams and so on, and record them. So that's going to be quite good if you like all of your meeting notes in one place and are a Zoom user. But yeah, it's also got things like calendar links and things like that. So yeah, they're trying to build out this whole idea that essentially this is the only kind of meeting platform that you need. And I think it's worth a look. I use Zoom. Sometimes I think I am still probably one of the only people to still be using it since the pandemic, but I really like it, actually.
Well, it's you and Simon Whale are the only two that ever invite me to Zoom meetings, but thanks to this, it means I can have that. What's the feature that I saw that was a brilliant idea? Free up my time option that the Zoom will now help you automate. So it's the same as declining a meeting invite, isn't it? But having that consistency. And we talked about last week with the idea of your sort of digital twins. If you have an AI avatar that's good enough to look a little dazed and as bold as I am, that you wouldn't actually need to be on those calls with everything else. And having that cross function, I know I struggle with Google Meet to work out, is it in Gemini, is it in Zoom, is it in Fathom? And actually to have that consistency is a great thing.
It's absolutely huge. Brilliant. All right, that is all we've got time for this week. So thank you as ever for listening in. We will be back again next week with plenty more in the Property AI Report. Matt, thank you for being there as ever.
It's good to see you, Mal. Enjoy the rest of your week, wherever you might be heading off to.
Likewise, and to you, mate. And yeah, everybody out there, have great weeks. We will see you again in 7 days. All the best. Take care. Bye-bye.